Hello. Thank you so much for joining me for Adult Sex Ed Online tonight. Tonight's topic is healthy relationships. And this is a topic that we'll be covering in observance of domestic violence awareness, as well as spreading information in our community for adults around sexual health and healthy relationships. So, one might ask, what does healthy relationships have to do with comprehensive sexual health education? Let's agree that there is a need in our community for us to revisit conversations about healthy relationships with young people, but with adults as well. Part of the DNA of beginning a sexual relationship starts with the establishment of some form of a relationship. And so our goal is to talk a little bit about having healthy relationships. And we also can agree that there are many different ways to look at this topic. There's many different ways to define what one might consider to be healthy, and so I'm not in any way shape saying that this is the only way to look at this topic, but I am inviting us all to consider this one of many perspectives and consider it something that is worth investigating as we go on into our conversation tonight. So let's begin by asking the question, where do we begin a healthy relationship? I'm glad you asked. You begin a healthy relationship with asking yourself, who am I? What do I believe is right? What am I most passionate about? What do I care about? What type of people do I want to be around and have in my life? What do I believe is right? What do I believe is wrong? What do I enjoy? How do I like to spend my time? What strengths do people see in me? How do I perceive others? These are all questions that we continually ask ourselves on a day-to-day basis, and depending upon how you answer these questions, sort of can impact or inform the way in which you engage in relationships with other people. Because obviously, if you have values and you have priorities and things like that don't align with somebody else, then it may be a problem within a relationship. So you always start with yourself with this particular topic. You start with yourself first. I think that this is my personal opinion, but I think that sometimes we could put too much weight into how other folks enter into relationship without examining our own intentions and our own feelings about something before we get started with this. So I invite us to, again, investigate that. Hopefully you can figure out for yourself, what is it that you want? What is it that you are looking for before you go out and start to engage with folks? So just for conversation purposes, what exactly are the characteristics, or could be some characteristics, of a healthy relationship? So a healthy relationship more than likely has good communication. Some version of good communication, an ongoing communication. You cannot expect people to read your mind. Nobody knows the answer to all those questions that we just previously asked about what you like, what you don't like. You have to express those things to the other person. They just can't know unless it is expressed. And so we do that through healthy communication. Also, a characteristic of a healthy relationship is probably going to be compromise, because we can't have it our way anywhere except at Burger King. There are always going to be some times where we're going to have to compromise when we're engaging with other people, regardless of what type of relationship it is. But for tonight, we're talking about how to build a healthy relationship. And so with that means that sometimes you have to be willing to compromise. You have to be willing to, set aside some of your wants in order to give a little to the other person who you're in relationship with. And this applies to any relationship. We're not just talking about intimate relationships, any type of relationship, whether it be a friendship or a sexual relationship. Like, you can't have everything focused on one party. There has to be a compromise. There has to be some equality within the relationship. Also, another characteristic is mutual respect. I have to care about what the other person wants, and they should care about what I want. They should care about what's important to me. I should care about what's important to them. So when there's mutual respect, you're able in the relationship to have good communication, to make those compromises, to have tough conversations when some need is not being met, or if the individual is not going about meeting your needs in the way that you need them to. There has to be some respect around that. And so if we had a list of ingredients, mutual respect, both individuals being respectful to each other should be on that list of ingredients. Next is the ability to maintain one's own identity within the relationship. And I feel like this is also high up on the list of ingredients for having healthy interactions with other people. You know, you shouldn't be changing and rearranging yourself every time you're around somebody. You know, you have to be comfortable and confident and safe to maintain your own identity within a relationship. Just because it's two individuals, you know, you don't have to morph into each other. You should have your own identity and maintain your own identity, even though you may find yourself in a relationship. Now, the flip side of that is there are also some characteristics that may be unhealthy or seen as unhealthy, and this is where some of the interpretation may come into the conversation because of folks' lived experiences and the things that they have normalized as a part of a relationship. And so I want to just give that disclaimer up front that this is based on research and information that's out there from psychologists and psychiatrists and different clinical folks around what a unhealthy relationship might look like, or some signs that you should be concerned about. And so, I fully recognize that sometimes folks' lived experiences may impact their perception on what is considered to be healthy and unhealthy. So you'll hear me say that over and over throughout the conversation. But for tonight, feeling intimidation, like you're not able to fully show up, like you're not able to fully be yourself or to voice your opinions, feeling scared, feeling fear in a relationship, whether it be around sex or whether it be around just your day-to-day involvement with a person. Like, you should not be fearful of them. You should not have to feel like you cannot be all of who you are within that interaction. If that is the case, you definitely want to look at that, because there may be some elements that are unhealthy going on. Fighting, and I don't mean, I don't only mean physical fighting. I mean, obviously, that is one way that people define fighting is physical altercation, but also any type of yelling, verbal, abusive kind of interaction is something to look at. Now, do people in healthy relationships have arguments? Yes, they have arguments. So I'm not saying that, oh my goodness, you should be concerned if you had an argument. What I am saying is that if this is a constant and ongoing thing, it is something to take a look at. And so I'm in no way suggesting that you're in an unhealthy relationship because you had a disagreement, because different people have different opinions and you're not going to always agree on everything. But if this is something that you're experiencing on an ongoing basis and you're unable to have a conversation without shouting, yelling, pushing, or cursing each other out, etc., etc., it's just something that you want to take a look at and maybe consider getting some intervention on. So, I used the word abuse just a moment ago. Let's slow down for a second and talk about what is the definition of abuse. So, according to the American Psychological Association, abuse is when someone treats a person or an animal with cruelty or violence, especially on a regular basis or repeatedly. So, if this again, is this something that's going on consistently, it's something to look at. And what are the types of abuse? Because abuse takes on many different forms. Again, this is another one of those areas where behaviors and things sometimes have been considered to be normal behaviors that are part of every relationship, because people have experienced it so much they may not realize that they are experiencing abuse. And so that is part of the purpose of our conversation tonight, to help us to examine any areas that we need to examine. So the types of abuse are physical abuse. So that is anything from hitting, wrestling a person down. My mother would call it snatching on each other. And we hear, folks get their waist snatched, get their edges snatched, but this is not a good snatch that's happening. So if you're getting snatched around, or getting wrestled to the floor, or thrown around, pushed around, slapping, punching, and things like that, it could be an abusive situation. Emotional abuse. That is, dealing with a person in a psychological manner. So making them think a certain way about themselves or about the other person. About if I'm in a relationship with someone and I am manipulating their mind and their thoughts, I'm making them think certain things that cause them a lot of anxiety. A good example of this is threatening to commit suicide. When I know that if I know that I'm not in that mental state, that is abusive to a person to tell them that you're contemplating doing something to harm yourself if you're really not in that state of mind. I mean, obviously, if someone is considering suicide, they need to seek help. And that is not something that you want to be telling a person if that's not truly your state of mind. But some people play games like that, and so it's important to recognize that in a relationship and make sure that you are letting the appropriate people know so that you can get some assistance, because obviously a threat like that should be taken seriously, and you should always follow up with somebody to make sure that people are okay. But this is just to raise our awareness that sometimes someone will say something like that to scare you into submission. Victim blaming. You made me do this. You if you would just do what I say, then I wouldn't have to blah blah blah. Like, that blaming is a form of abuse. Verbal abuse, yelling, cursing, put downs, demeaning a person, talking bad about a person, and they're in any way, shape, or form. That kind of behavior is abusive behavior. Financial abuse is a form of abuse. That's withholding finances from a person. If you are the person who is, if you have you're a stay-at-home parent and you are not working, or for whatever reason you're relying on another person for financial assistance, or you are splitting the bills and they're not sharing within those financial responsibilities intentionally to cause distress or to cause harm, it is abuse. Taking money from a person. extortion. All of these different things are considered to be financial abuse, and it is something to get some intervention and assistance with. Digital abuse, controlling a person's social media activity, making someone give you their passwords to their information, posting comments up under that person's identity. All of these kinds of things. We are in a day and age where individuals have access to technology at the palm of their hand, and folks are sharing, information continually. And so just be mindful that it's not okay for us to, hack into people's information. It's not our right to demand somebody's passcodes and demand to see their messages and things like that. Like, people have a right to have a Facebook or whatever they have, and you have a right to have it too. So, telling somebody they can't have a page or whatever is, that's not our right. Stalking, showing up uninvited, unwanted, leaving unwanted gifts and presents, excessive phone calls and messages to a person. Like, this kind of behavior isn't okay. And so if you are experiencing that, this is just something to take a look at. Was having this conversation in a setting at one point, and someone said to me, so, like, if I wanted to surprise my significant other, like, is that considered stalking? Well, no. But if you are popping up everywhere this person is, they're at the gas station, here you come. They're at work, you're there. They're at the party, here you are. Like, that's what I'm talking about. Not, coming to bring flowers. But I will caution us to just say that, sometimes the stalking shows up and it looks like it was a kind gesture, but all the time the individual, was checking it up on a person. I mean, you just need to just be mindful of these different behaviors and make sure that you don't have a problem on your hands if somebody's showing up where you are, or using the Find My Phone app, like all these different things to check in on you. So in comes the conversation around boundaries. So when we find that significant other, that person that we decide that we want to engage in a relationship with, it's important to have some healthy boundaries about, how we're going to be together in relationship. And I like to call it like road guardrails for our for our interaction. Like how you're driving along the expressway and you see the guardrails up on the sides to keep you in your lane. Relationships need to have guardrails to help us stay in our lane. So boundaries are agreements that partners should come up with together in order to have a deeper understanding of the type of relationship that they want to have. And boundaries are not meant to make a person feel trapped or like they have to walk on eggshells. So I want to be clear in saying that you are allowed to say, I don't like this. I would appreciate if you would do this, don't do that. Like, you're allowed to say those things. And if you don't feel safe to say them, or to ask certain things of a person, it just might be something to examine. Again, healthy boundaries should help you to keep your values intact and be able to be in relationship with another person. But it is not meant to restrict your ability to do things on your own within a relationship. Sometimes I've heard folks say, well, this person or that person likes to go out with their friends. Well, I mean, yeah, the person has a right to have friends, and they have a right to go out with their friends. Now, if it's excessive, then and it's an issue for you within the relationship, then yes, you have a right to say something about that. You out with your friends every night of the week. That might be an issue. It might be excessive. However, just getting upset because a person has friends or wants to do something with a friend or with their family or etc. without the partner there might be an issue. Might be something to take a look at. People have a right to have their hobbies and their goals and their activities that they enjoy, their self-care activities that they enjoy doing. And they have a right to go to church. So if you have a partner that doesn't like to go to church and you do, that's just something that you have to compromise on. But restricting you from going is an issue. And you should be having that mutual respect for other people's likes and needs. Sometimes people need some space, and they need, sometimes they need to miss you a little bit, and so just let a person miss you for a couple of hours sometimes, and check in, and then give them a little bit of breathing room. Another thing to bring into the conversation is around consent. Now, in a relationship, both or all, depending upon what type of relationship, because some people have relationships, intimate relationships, loving relationships with more than one person, and it's a mutually agreeable thing. And so I want to use the correct language. Both or all parties are able to talk openly about and agree on what kind of activity they want to engage in. So it doesn't matter whether it's sexual or whether it's holding hands or going to Popeye's chicken for lunch. That's where we all going, or that's where we're going. People should be given the opportunity to consent. They shouldn't be coerced or forced into doing something that they don't want to do. And if you don't have that person's consent, it's best to assume that the answer is going to be a no. Don't ever continue on or start doing something without a clear yes from the other individual. Don't assume a yes. We went to the movie, we went to the party, so you think automatically. No, you need to ask, and you need to hear them say yes. Consent is not because the person flirted with me. Consent is not that they accepted the drink at the bar. Consent is not I'm married to you, and so therefore I don't have to ask you anything. That is not consent. I said I do, but that was to the marriage. That wasn't to whatever it was that was happening the other day. You need to get clear consent. Person needs to say yes to you, to a question that was asked. They need to say yes. And a person is unable to consent if they're under the influence of alcohol and drugs. So if a person is clearly intoxicated and they say and they agree to something, you need to know that they're not able to consent if they are under the influence of a substance. Peer pressure is not consent. So goading a person or teasing a person, bullying a person is not considered consent. You need to make sure that this person wants to engage in whatever it is that is being discussed. And if they are showing signs of hesitation, stop. It's just safer to just not do it. Red flags. that if the person does not consent is, feeling guilt or feeling like they owe you something. If they react negatively, like showing signs of sadness, anger, or resentment. If they say no, the answer is no, period. And don't ignore a person's wishes. Don't ignore the nonverbal cues as well. So shaking my head, pulling away, those are all physical nonverbal cues that mean I'm not into this. So pay attention to those things. If there is a conflict of any kind within your relationship, it's normal for people to disagree about, whether to go to Five Guys Burgers and Fries or to go to Applebee's. That's all part of, par for the course. But there is a healthy way to resolve an argument. And you can, do one of the following three things if you need some guidance on that. You can agree to disagree. You can, take different things into consideration and choose which things you want to address and which things you want to let go. Or you can, address the issue head on. But these are healthy ways to resolve conflicts. But hitting is never a way to resolve something. The silent treatment, all these kinds of things are manipulation. And so again, just food for thought, as we work to have healthy relationships and we work to have loving relationships, regardless of the type of relationship. So who's a good candidate for who's a good candidate for a relationship? Well, I have some news you can use. You can add to this. This is not an exhaustive list of qualities, but somebody that treats you with respect is possibly a person that might be a good candidate for a relationship. Doesn't make fun of the things you like or the things you want to do, the goals you have, the things you're interested in. They're not putting you down. They're not getting angry if you want to spend time with your family or friends. They're listening to your ideas and willing and able to compromise with you. They're not being negative all the time. Share some of the same interests that you have and supports you in pursuing your interests. Not afraid to share their thoughts or their feelings with you, or to allow you to do the same. Share your thoughts and feelings with them. They're comfortable around other people. In a relationship, it's okay to be alone, but if you are always alone with your partner and there's never any outside engagement with other people, or going outside the home or out into the world and experiencing things with other people that are outside your front door, it's just something to consider. Is proud of your accomplishments and your success and not jealous of your accomplishments and successes. A person who is respectful of your boundaries and does not use technology to abuse you. These are just some starters, but there are other things, and happy if folks are able to put things in the chat. So healthy relationships are can also be impacted by some other things. Gender is another area to examine when looking at healthy relationships, and this is sort of a way to talk about some of the pitfalls that may come up depending upon what's happening and what type of relationship that you are looking at. When you get into a relationship, any type of relationship, both individuals or all individuals come in with some type of expectations. There's something that you are looking to get from being in relationship with another person. So you want to be clear about what those expectations are and communicate them to the other person, right? Nobody can read your mind. Nobody knows what you're expecting to happen unless you say what you're expecting to happen. And so right on the front end of building a relationship with a person, it's important for you to name what your expectations are and what you expect to gain from being in a relationship with the person, as well as what is a deal breaker. This is what I'm looking to gain. This is what I'm not looking for. That's almost more important in some instances than saying what you are looking for is saying what you're not looking for. It's good to be clear about both things. I'm not sure what's going on with this live, but I do apologize. The other thing is to give a person some information on what you are willing or unwilling to engage in the relationship. If you are depending upon what type of relationship it is, if there are things that you are willing to give or willing to do, or unwilling to give, unwilling to do, it's good to be upfront about that and be honest about that. So to give you an example, if I am looking for a boyfriend or a girlfriend, that's different than looking for a wife or a husband, right? Because a boyfriend or girlfriend is a different type of relationship. There are different expectations that a person has of a wife versus a girlfriend, etc., etc., etc. So you want to make sure that you're really clear about what your expectations are. I also think that there should be a conversation around, and this comes from the unequal partners relationship curriculum, but it's important to talk about equality and power in a relationship. Like some people govern their relationships based on roles. What is the roles and responsibilities of this individual versus that individual. Other people customize their relationships and they don't have a lot of rules and regulations about what a person should do or shouldn't do based off of their gender. And so it's important for you to have those conversations and make a mental note of where a person stands on some of these kinds of things. If you know good and well that you are not a stay-at-home mom personality, you are a person that's out there, you like to go, and you're not willing to make certain sacrifices to become a homebody, it's just important to name those things. It doesn't mean that the relationship can't be successful or that the two individuals can't make a compromise, but it is important to say, well, I'm not really a homebody. I like to go and explore and travel, etc., do this, that, and the other, and I'm not really looking for the type of relationship that requires me to be a homebody. If you know you're not looking to be a parent, then you want to have a conversation about that, because an individual who is looking to be a parent might not be the right mate for you. And so it's important for you to say that, well, I want children. The other person, I don't want children. It's important to have these conversations up front. But it can save you a lot of time. And again, it doesn't mean that you can't revisit these same issues later on if you choose to go forward in a relationship. But it's important to set that foundation up for success with the person. And how you do that is communicating your expectations and what you're looking for. When I talked a bit about equality, and power. It should be shared. One person shouldn't be making all the decisions about the relationship. One person shouldn't be in control of, we're going to do this, speaking on behalf of all the participants in the relationship. So you want to make sure that you are able to voice your opinion, your wants. You're able to say no when you need to say no. You're able to say yes when you want to say yes, and that it is respected by the other party. You want to make sure that you're being consulted about things and no one is, deciding things for you. And all of this has, sometimes certain qualities are assigned to people based on gender, but I'm challenging that to say that these types of situations, regardless of what a person's gender is, you want to be clear about, where you stand on things, and you want to be able to stand on your values in the relationship. And around power, sharing power, there are always those instances where somebody's going to be out front and somebody's going to be playing the supporting role, and vice versa. In other situations, the other person who was in the back playing the supporting role may have to step out front, and then the person who was out front may have to take a back seat and play the supporting role. Like, there should be that give and take within the relationship, but no person should be a martyr in a relationship, and no person should be somebody that's always bearing all of the weight of the and responsibility of the relationship. It should be shared, it should be mutual, but there is going to be some shifting back and forth, and so it's important to keep those things in mind. It's not always mama's job to do the caregiving. It's not always husband's job to initiate the sex. So these are just examples of ways in which people share power and share influence within their relationship. Feelings of powerlessness. If you feel powerless and you just have no control of what's going on within your life, that is an area to be concerned about. Again, when we talked about abuse, you shouldn't feel powerless. You shouldn't feel like there's just nothing that you have any say so over, or any any part to play, role to play. You should feel empowered in your relationships, regardless of the type of relationships. Just want to keep emphasizing that we're not only talking about intimate relationships, but we're talking about friendships and other types of relationships, work relationships. Regardless of what type of relationship you're in with other people, these same qualities and attributes should be present. So, I mentioned before, every relationship is different, and people have qualities and characteristics, interests and personalities, and all these different elements that are different. But there are some things about healthy relationships that they all have the same things in common. And so those are those things that we talked about earlier around communication and healthy habits and things like that. So ageism is a thing that comes up in relationships. Assuming that a person is more wise or less wise based on their age could be a issue in a relationship to consider looking at. So it's not all on if there is a situation where the relationship is between two individuals who have different ages, there's no reason to assume that the older person is the most wise person or the person in control of the relationship. However, if that is the case, again, age disconcordance can be a place where some of this inequality within a relationship can occur, and sometimes some abuse can occur. So that's not every relationship that's age discordant, but that is something to consider. And so you want to look at that and make sure that all parties feel empowered in the relationship, and all parties are consenting, and all parties are able to consent. For the purpose of this conversation, we're talking about adults, so we're talking about people who may be age discordant, but no one is a minor. That's a different conversation that we're not going to cover tonight, but I do still again want to emphasize that it's important for us as adults to make sure that if we are in a relationship where we're 10 years apart, 20 years apart, that it isn't assumed that the older person is in control. It isn't assumed because you're younger than somebody that you have to do things in a certain way. It's still the same equality, compromise, and respect regardless of ages. All right. And so we are coming to the end of our time together. I'm so excited that we had some folks to tune in with us tonight. And we'll be back with you all on next month, where we will be talking about maternal health. And so I'll keep you posted on the conversation, and I look forward to seeing you all on next month. Remember, if you have any questions after listening to the presentation, or if you have any comments or anything that you would like to share, you can continue to post on this video in the comment area, and we'll get back with you and answer any questions that you have. Or if you would like to reach out to me directly, my email address is orisha, ORISHA, at sisterreach.org. You can reach out to me there if you have any additional questions. We're always available to help you as we continue to help ourselves. So I hope you all had a good time listening tonight. It was a plum pleasing pleasure to talk to you about healthy relationships, and I look forward to seeing you guys in November. Have a great evening.